Today's news, EXO's Kai opens up about his depression and his love for dancing.
Some of you have really enjoyed recently the beginnings where I show a painting, so I definitely want to show this one, which is a personal favorite of both of ours. And it doesn't look great. It's a little, that light is too, let's see here. Ah! There we go. What's the name of this one?
That one is Curious Maki.
And it's so nice. Oh, we've had it hanging in our living room, but you never see it because it's always behind the camera right there. A link down below for all her paintings. Check them out if you're interested. Kai, who many of you know from EXO, recently sat down with the magazine Dazed and opened up about some serious issues.
Yeah, things like dancing and his relationship with his mother, and also his depression.
This wouldn't be such a big deal, but so rarely do K-pop idols do these sorts of interviews.
Well, they do interviews fairly frequently, but not really getting into this kind of thing. Talking about their mental health and mental well-being, though that's starting to come up more and more often in K-drama and K-pop land.
I agree. You're seeing a change in the way idol status is being viewed by the public. And this is one of those really good examples. Like this 2 years ago probably wouldn't have happened. We are seeing this more and more with K-pop idols in general, and I gotta say it's refreshing.
It really is, especially because mental health in South Korea, at least when we first moved there and we lived there, it wasn't so acceptable for people to talk about mental health, and it definitely wasn't covered under national health care, which, if you didn't know, South Korea has universal health care.
I do want to read a couple excerpts from the interview directly from Kai's mouth. Kai's mouth? Kai's words?
Kai's words.
What Kai said in the interview. My personality tends to be bright, but I do think there is fundamentally a part of me that withdraws. I like being alone, and I tend to cry a lot. I also don't have friends. Once in a while, I'll be depressed and downcast, but in those moments, I'll just stay at home. I don't make an effort to ignore or try to escape these emotions. I look at it, depression, straight in the eye, cry my troubles away, and shake it off because it's not something to be ashamed of. I'm gonna just go ahead and say something here. I feel like all of us, every single person watching, including you and me, and everyone who's not watching this video, if you're human, you felt emotions of depression. And some of us have felt deeper depression than others. I know you felt some serious depression in your life. I know I have, not at the same time as you, and for different reasons, but we both have. I think the majority of people here have felt some deep depression. It's something that we don't talk about enough. I know you're sitting there going, yes, 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 you're absolutely right. We don't talk about this. You have a lot of things that you want to say is going through your head right now. Go ahead.
There were some things that were really striking to me in what he said. One thing was him acknowledging that once in a while he feels depressed. I hope that it's once in a while and not more frequently than that, but I'm happy that he at least acknowledges that once in a while he does feel depressed, because as you said, I think that that's a very natural emotion that most of us do feel from time to time.
I always sort of very much dislike being around people who say that they're happy all the time, because to me that's a straight up lie. Happiness is an emotion that people feel just like all the range of emotions that we're going to go through. But to be happy almost always,
Well,
that's just unrealistic.
Well, and he actually talks about that later on in the interview when he talks about his realistic mindset of what happiness is and how, to him, it is a mindset. Like, you have to set your mind to be happy, and you have to choose to be happy and acknowledge it and kind of face it head on, kind of like he also talks about facing his depression head on. That's kind of a very healthy perspective to have. I'm glad that he cries things out when he's upset. I think that's amazing for a guy to acknowledge and say, listen, we feel these negative emotions. We need to cry them out sometimes. Bravo! Because that makes you a very strong person.
You do get the feeling that he's telling the truth in this interview. Not that anyone's suspecting that he's lying, but I always look for authenticity when people talk, like when I meet them for the first time, or I'm just listening to someone talk on a YouTube video, for instance. There's such a fine line between someone telling the truth and someone lying, and how can you know, and how can you judge whether you think they are or they're not? And I think as you get older, you just get a little bit better at making your own judgment call on how authentic people are. We didn't actually hear his voice, you're just reading his words.
Yeah.
but it does seem like he's telling the truth, generally speaking. I'm sure he does cry. I cry a little bit from time to time, and this is when I fucking totally lost it. But I don't do it here. But I just think that he is trying to be forthcoming and honest in this. And I think it's just worth noting.
I also think that he's probably had a lot of things happen in the past year or 2 years that have actually, have been very emotional. He's had injuries. I mean, he's a dancer. This is what he has been doing since he's 8 years old. And, I mean, he's been doing EXO since 2012, but he's been dancing since he was 8 years old, and that's been such a big passion of his. And to get injured to the point where he's in a wheelchair and he can't dance for lengths of time, and also he gets in a relationship with this girl that he likes, Crystal, and he gets a whole lot of backlash from that. I think that there were definite things in his life that could cause, some unrest, some unsettled feelings, and maybe cause him to feel depressed from time to time.
More than the majority of us or anyone watching knows. As far as we know, he's still dating Crystal, and that has just been so scrutinized. And for what? What's the reasoning? The reasoning is he's famous and a lot of little girls like him.
He's famous, she's famous, and so everybody's eyes are on them and scrutinizing their every move and their every relationship thing that they do.
I just feel like people in Korea have a slightly less amount of experience when it comes to relationships. I know that when I was there amongst university students, a lot of them were going into their first relationship of their life when they were in college. They had never even kissed anyone until they got to college. There's nothing wrong with that at all, but it was very evident that they were delving into this whole area of life a little bit later than what we experienced, for instance, in America with, I know I had some girlfriends that, it didn't last very long, but in middle school, and then some serious girlfriends in high school, and it's just different there. And so the younger people who look up to the K-pop idols are going through what I just described, not in any relationship, and looking at Kai's relationship. And so then, therefore, it's more interesting to them versus people the same age here. It's kind of like, well, let them be, but just a little bit background experience from our perspective.
And that's a good point. For me, the only thing that's in this interview that really makes me worried about Kai is his phrase, is his statement, rather, I don't have any friends.
I can relate with that. I mean, I have friends. But we spend a lot of time in this house these days. And I don't mean like it's the holidays. No, as YouTube becomes more important for us, and as we continue to do this and you continue to paint, it's harder to relate with people. That's it. So I have some close childhood friends. So do you. We do have friends. But I know what he means. I don't mean I don't have any friends. Because, of course, he's friends with all of the members of EXO. So he's not totally, I wouldn't say truthful, but he's not describing it in detail what he means. Probably outside of EXO, he doesn't have a lot of people he hangs out with. There's a lot of reason for that. He's busy with his schedule, yada, yada, yada. But yes, he doesn't probably have that many friends.
That was what I was going to get at, is that kind of, is he talking about the members of EXO or not? Because that could be misconstrued. Right. I hope that he has a really great relationship with his fellow members of EXO and his fellow idol people, because those are going to be his circle of people he can relate to that will help him when he feels depressed.
And there's no reason for us to think that he's not friends with any of those members either. I am really curious how many of you are brave enough or just open enough to drop a note in the comments about whether you've dealt with depression yourself or just some emotions of depression, or you know someone who's dealt with some serious depression issues. We talked a little bit about each of us having to deal with that. I know pretty much all humans, if you're human, you've dealt with this. Kai now has opened up about it, so comments down below. What do you think about Kai opening up to this? What about you? What's your experience with that sort of thing?
And what have you found to be helpful whenever you are dealing with depression and depressive feelings? Kai talked about how he views happiness and what he does when he's depressed. So let's help each other. Let's come together as a community and help support each other and give each other ideas on what we can do to help be positive.
Click the like button, you guys. Thank you so much for supporting us, and don't forget to subscribe for more Hallyu Back news. That's it. We're out of here. Hasta luego.
Bye.